But the internet just changed everything because that eliminated the deadlines. Even writing game stories, I would write a story during the game and send it in as soon as the game was over. And then I would have maybe an hour. You'd have till say the game ends at 9:50. You might have until 11:15 or 11 o'clock to get your next story in with quotes and so on and so forth. And once you did that, you were done. But when the internet came around, I remember I was off the beat by then, or when the internet really started becoming the dominant thing. And I was seeing beat writers write until 1 a.m. in the morning and just to, because they had more time and they, could make the story better and get more quotes or whatever. Or even sometimes it was not better, but you just have more time. So you're trying to make it better. And that just adds to the challenge of being a beat writer as well. And now, guys, like when I go to a game, and you may notice this if you follow me on social media, when I watch a game, even now, or when I used to go to games for ESPN and write or the New York Times, whatever, I would not be tweeting. I'm not tweeting during the game. I like to just watch the game and focus on it. But now a lot of guys, particularly beat writers, do feel or they want to tweet during the game. And for me, I just want to watch it, take some notes if I want to, and zero in on the action.
It's funny you say that because in 2018, The Athletic hired me to help with their Warriors coverage. They had a great team with Kawakami there and Anthony Slater and Marcus Thompson. And I came on in, and I was used to that by then already at ESPN. I'm tweeting this happened, that happened, this happened, that happened, this thought, that thought. And I said to myself, I'm just not going to tweet about the game while the game is happening. And I do think I produced the best work that I produced in my career in that kind of spot. And I realized that there's a creative spend when you're doing that. You might not think much of it. You might think, hey, this is just a little thing I'm throwing out there, or I'm just keeping people, invested in all this. But there's an energy to that, and you're spending the energy versus keeping that energy in. And also, not to be so self-regarding about my perspective, I realize, dude, you've been giving away your angle to everybody else when you've been tweeting like an idiot. Right. Now, then I would just keep it to myself. I would keep it under wraps, and lo and behold, when I put it out there the next day, it turned out that it was actually I was the only person saying it, as opposed to in the past where, whoa, somehow a bunch of people are saying the same thing that I said. So it's amazing.
That's a great point.
You get addicted to just being part of the conversation, but it's to the detriment of what you actually are trying to say and how you're trying to differentiate yourself. But what's happening now, Chris, this job we're talking about, the beat writer job, it just seems like it's going away. It seems like it's not even, if it even still is a thing. I think I see some people out there who are good beat writers. I think Dan Wakey is somebody who comes to mind. But even Slater, who is the Warriors beat writer, is covering multiple teams. The dedicated beat writer is being phased out. How do you feel about that? And do you feel it in the coverage we're getting of these NBA teams?
Yeah, it's unfortunate because even as the national guys break the news, right? And even not just transactions, but, they'll break news about things really going on with the team. But the daily beat writers there every day, and you do get something from daily beat writers that you don't get from the national guys, right? Yeah. Even if it's not news breaking, it's just the information about the team that's at a level that you won't get from the national guys. So I do think it's unfortunate. But I understand it because most people, when they they're looking for NBA news, they're going to listen to Zach Lowe, or obviously you got the news breakers, Woj and Shams, and you got podcasts now and stuff. So there's so much information out there now and available that I do understand the demise of the beat writer. And as even game stories are completely different. And I think I used to actually write a game story kind of about that game, that individual game. That's how I wrote what game stories were. And now there's commentary mixed in, and there's, and it's kind of like a column / game story, and they're good. They're really good to read, but it's completely different from what used to go on back when you just had newspapers and, you had beat writers who were the main voice for that team or about the team.
Well, you lose that authority of the voice of the team, but there's just also so much. And a lot of it, there are guys covering teams, but they're not traveling because of the expense. And that's where you get a lot of the sense of what the team is and who the guys are.
Yep.
And there are pros and cons because we have a lot more of guys revealing themselves and on social media speaking for themselves and having their own podcasts. And I get probably more of a sense of Paul George's personality now than I would have gotten back in the day. But I do think that we know the teams not as well. We know the teams less than we did. I just get that sense of it. I do think there's a lot of coverage in the 2020 bubble when they had that ratings collapse. And I do think there was a political, social aspect to it. But with any big change, I think there are multiple reasons. I think the most underrated reason, Chris, is that there were no media around. I know people hate to hear that sometimes, because it's easy to lash out at the media, but we understand everything through story. We are just story making and story consuming machines as human beings. And if there's nobody around to really generate, hey, here's what the story is, a lot of times there's just nothing that connects. It can't just be guys out there in uniforms.